Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands as thunder rumbled overhead. His small repair shop sat on the edge of New Geneva Colony, where broken machines found new life under his skilled touch. The storm outside had been raging for hours, but something felt different about this particular rumble. The workshop door exploded inward. Marcus dove behind his workbench as debris scattered across the floor. Through the settling dust, a massive shadow filled the doorway. His breath caught in his throat as he saw scales the size of dinner plates, each one shimmering with an otherworldly blue-green hue. The creature was enormous, easily 20 feet long, with wings that scraped against the ceiling beams. A dragon, an actual alien dragon. Marcus had heard rumors from the outer colonies about these beings. The Zephyrians, they called themselves. Most humans had never seen one up close. They kept to themselves in the deep forests of distant worlds, avoiding contact with the expanding human settlements. But this one was here, in his shop. And she was not alone. Cradled in her massive forearms was something small and still. Another dragon, but tiny, no bigger than a house cat. Its scales were dull and gray, lacking the vibrant colors of its mother. The little one's breathing was shallow and labored. The mother dragon looked directly at Marcus with eyes like liquid amber. Those eyes held an intelligence that made his skin crawl and his heart ache at the same time. Then she did something that shattered every preconception he had about these creatures. She began to cry. Not the roar or screech he expected, but genuine tears that rolled down her massive snout. Her voice, when it came, was like wind through canyon walls, deep and resonant, but unmistakably filled with anguish. "Please," she said in heavily accented standard. "My child dying." Marcus slowly stood, his legs shaking. The dragon made no aggressive moves, despite being large enough to crush him without effort. She simply held her young one closer and continued to weep. "Help. Hurt humans. Fix broken things," she continued, each word carefully chosen. "My baby broken inside. Cannot fix." The little dragon's breath came in tiny, painful gasps. Marcus could see its small chest struggling to rise and fall. Whatever was wrong, the creature was clearly suffering. Marcus's mind raced. He was a handyman, not a doctor. He fixed replicators and environmental systems, not living beings. But looking at this desperate mother, holding her dying child, something stirred deep in his chest. It was the same feeling he got when Mrs. Patterson brought him her late husband's pocket watch, or when the school children asked him to fix their playground equipment. Some things needed fixing. "Regardless of the difficulty, I'm not a doctor," Marcus said carefully, stepping closer. "I fix machines, not people." The dragon mother's eyes widened with fresh hope. "Humans clever? Humans make broken things work again. Please try." She gently lowered the small dragon onto Marcus's main workbench, the same surface where he had repaired countless devices. The little one lay still, its breathing barely visible. Up close, Marcus could see that its scales were not just dull. They had a sickly, translucent quality, like old plastic left in the sun. "What's your name?" Marcus asked, surprised by his own boldness. "Kirillith," the mother replied. "Little one is Zephyr." Marcus nodded, then activated his workshop's bioscanner, a tool he typically used to analyze organic components in hybrid technologies. The readouts made him frown. Zephyr's internal systems were unlike anything in his databases, but certain patterns looked familiar. "When did this start?" he asked. 7 days past. Zephyr played in the crystal caves, found shiny stones, then became sick. Crystal caves. Marcus had heard about those formations on some of the outer worlds. They often contained rare minerals, some of which could be highly toxic to certain species. But which minerals? And how could they affect a dragon? "Did Zephyr eat any of the stones?" Kirillith's massive head nodded slowly. "One small crystal. Pretty blue color." Marcus pulled up his geological database. Blue crystals found in caves. There were dozens of possibilities. Some were harmless, others deadly poisonous. Without knowing exactly which crystal Zephyr had ingested, treatment would be nearly impossible. Unless... Marcus looked at his collection of diagnostic equipment. He had tools that could analyze materials down to the molecular level. If he could find traces of the crystal in Zephyr's system, he might be able to identify it and determine how to neutralize its effects. "Kirillith," he said softly, "I need to run some tests. They won't hurt Zephyr, but I need to be very careful and precise. Can you trust me?" The dragon mother's amber eyes searched Marcus's face for a long moment. Here was a human she had never met, in a species known for their wariness of dragons. Yet something in his expression, his careful concern for her child, seemed to convince her. "Yes," she whispered. "I trust." Marcus began powering up his most sensitive equipment. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the workshop, a different kind of storm was brewing. A human handyman was about to attempt something that had never been done before, using his knowledge of machines and materials to save an alien life. As he prepared his scanners, Marcus caught Kirillith watching his every move. Her massive form trembled slightly. Whether from exhaustion or fear, he couldn't tell. But her eyes never left her child. Marcus had always believed that the universe was full of broken things waiting to be fixed. Today he was about to discover just how far that philosophy could take him. The little dragon's life hung in the balance, and Marcus Chen was the only hope this desperate mother had left. The real work was about to begin. Marcus activated his molecular scanner and carefully positioned it above the tiny dragon. Zephyr lay motionless on the workbench, each breath a struggle that made Marcus's chest tighten with sympathy. The scanner hummed to life, projecting a three-dimensional map of the little creature's internal structure. What he saw took his breath away. Zephyrian physiology was unlike anything in human medical databases. Where humans had a heart, Zephyr had three smaller organs that pumped a luminescent fluid through crystalline channels rather than blood vessels. The creature's lungs were more like organic filters processing atmospheric gases through what looked like living gemstone formations. "Incredible," Marcus whispered, then caught himself. This wasn't a research opportunity. This was a dying child. Kirillith moved closer, her massive head hovering over the scanner display. "What do you see?" Marcus pointed to a cluster of bright red warnings on his screen. "These areas here, they're not functioning properly." "Your people. Do you normally have these crystal formations in your lungs?" "Yes," Kirillith replied. "Breathing stones. Help us process air from different worlds." Marcus nodded, making mental notes. The scanner revealed that Zephyr's breathing stones were clouded with foreign material. The blue crystal the little dragon had eaten was slowly breaking down and contaminating these vital organs. The crystal Zephyr ate. It's dissolving inside him. The pieces are blocking his breathing stones. Kirillith's eyes widened in horror. "Can you remove?" Marcus studied the readouts carefully. The foreign crystal had spread throughout Zephyr's respiratory system like a poison. Traditional surgery would be impossible. The breathing stones were too delicate and too integrated with surrounding tissues. But Marcus wasn't thinking like a doctor. He was thinking like an engineer. "Kirillith, what do your people do when breathing stones become damaged naturally? Do they heal on their own?" "Yes, with time and proper minerals. We eat special stones to help repair." Marcus leaned forward, his mind racing. What if we could neutralize the poison crystal and give Zephyr's body the materials it needs to heal itself? He turned to his chemical analysis station, a sophisticated device he used to break down unknown materials and salvaged equipment. If he could identify the exact composition of the crystal Zephyr had eaten, he might be able to find something to counteract its effects. "I need a sample of the type of crystal Zephyr swallowed." "Do you have any?" Kirillith's expression fell. "Crystal caves are 7 days' flight from here. Little one does not have 7 days." Marcus felt his hope starting to fade, but then something occurred to him. He rushed to his storage cabinets and began pulling out containers of various minerals and compounds he had collected over the years. His hobby of geology had seemed pointless to most people, but now, blue crystals found in caves, he muttered, sorting through samples. Could be copper sulfate, cobalt compounds, azurite. He lined up several blue specimens on his workbench. Using a small spectrometer, he began analyzing each one, comparing the molecular signatures to the traces he had detected in Zephyr's system. Kirillith watched anxiously as Marcus worked. The little dragon's breathing had become even more labored, and its scales were beginning to turn an alarming shade of gray. "Hurry," Kirillith whispered. On the 5th sample, Marcus's spectrometer chimed with a match. Cobalt silicate. That's it. He pulled up the chemical data on his screen. It's toxic because it's releasing cobalt ions into Zephyr's system. But cobalt poisoning can be treated with chelation therapy. Chell, what? Sorry, Marcus said, forcing himself to slow down. There are chemicals that can bind to the cobalt and help Zephyr's body remove it. But I need to modify the process for Zephyrian physiology. Marcus began calculating dosages and treatment options. The problem was that human chelation agents might be harmful to a dragon's unique biology. He needed something that would work with Zephyr's crystal-based organs, not against them. Then inspiration struck. Kirillith, you said your people eat special stones to help repair breathing stones. What kinds of stones? Clean quartz, iron stones, sometimes silver metals. Marcus nodded excitedly. Those are exactly what I need. Natural minerals that can absorb and neutralize the cobalt while providing materials for healing. He pulled out samples of pure quartz and iron oxide from his collection. Using his matter compiler, a device that could break down materials to their atomic components and reassemble them, he began creating a custom mineral compound. This should work like medicine, Marcus explained as he worked. The quartz will help absorb the poison, and the iron will give Zephyr's body what it needs to rebuild the damaged breathing stones. But there was still the problem of delivery. How could he get the treatment into Zephyr's system? The little dragon was too weak to eat. An injection might damage the delicate crystalline organs. Marcus studied his equipment, then looked at Kirillith thoughtfully. Your people breathe these minerals naturally, right? What if we created a mineral mist that Zephyr could inhale? Kirillith's eyes brightened with the first hope Marcus had seen. Yes. We sometimes breathe healing vapors from hot springs. Marcus quickly modified one of his atmospheric processors to create a fine mineral aerosol. The device was designed to purify air in damaged life support systems, but with some adjustments. It could deliver therapeutic minerals directly to Zephyr's respiratory system. As he made the final calibrations, Marcus noticed Zephyr's breathing becoming more irregular. Time was running out. Ready, Marcus announced, positioning the aerosol generator near the little dragon's snout. This might take several hours to work, but it should start helping immediately. He activated the device, and a gentle mist of therapeutic minerals began flowing over Zephyr. The little dragon's nostrils fluttered slightly as the treatment began to take effect. Kirillith lowered her massive head until it was nearly touching her child. Thank you, she whispered to Marcus. You give hope where there was none. Marcus settled into a chair beside the workbench, monitoring the readouts on his scanner. The treatment was designed to work slowly and naturally, giving Zephyr's body time to process the healing minerals without shock. Now came the hardest part, waiting. 3 hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the steady hum of the aerosol generator and the storm outside. Marcus kept his eyes glued to the scanner displays, watching for any sign of improvement in Zephyr's condition. Kirillith remained motionless, her great head resting on the floor beside the workbench. Amber eyes never leaving her child. Then, something changed. Look, Marcus said softly, pointing to the scanner readout. The red warning indicators in Zephyr's respiratory system had shifted from bright crimson to a duller orange. The cobalt levels are dropping. Kirillith raised her head slightly. Is good? Very good. The treatment is working. But as Marcus continued monitoring, he noticed something troubling. While the cobalt poisoning was being addressed, Zephyr's overall energy levels were still declining. The little dragon's breathing had stabilized but remained weak. Marcus frowned at the readings. The mineral therapy was doing its job, removing toxins and providing raw materials for healing. But something else was wrong. Zephyr's bioenergy patterns were unlike anything in his databases. Kirillith, he said carefully. How long can a young dragon go without food? Many days, if healthy. But Zephyr has eaten nothing for 3 days, body using all energy to fight poison. Marcus nodded grimly. It made sense. Zephyr's system was so focused on survival that it had no resources left for normal functions like digestion or growth. Even if they eliminated the cobalt completely, the little dragon might be too weak to recover. What do young dragons normally eat? First year only mother's milk. Contains special minerals for growth. Marcus felt his heart sink. Even if he could analyze the composition of dragon milk, he had no way to synthesize something so complex and specific to Zephyrian biology. The mineral treatment was keeping Zephyr alive, but without proper nutrition, recovery was impossible. He was about to voice his concerns when an alert chimed from his long-range scanner. The device detected incoming aircraft, 3 vessels approaching fast from the north. Kirillith's head snapped up, her nostrils flaring. Hunters. What? Dragon hunters. They follow storm trails to find us when we travel. Kirillith's voice carried a new tension. They must not find us here. Marcus checked his external monitors. 3 sleek combat vessels were indeed approaching, their weapon signatures active. Dragon hunters were illegal in most human territories, but enforcement was spotty on frontier worlds like New Geneva. They can't just attack you, Marcus protested. There are laws. Laws mean nothing to poachers, Kirillith interrupted. Dragon scales worth fortune on black market. Baby dragon even more valuable. The approaching ships were now close enough for Marcus to read their transponder codes. His blood ran cold. These weren't just poachers. They were military-grade vessels with illegal weapon modifications. We need to hide you, Marcus said urgently. Cannot move, Zephyr. Treatment must continue. Marcus looked around his workshop desperately. The building was large enough to hide Kirillith, but the aerosol generator and scanner equipment made it obvious that something important was happening. If the hunters decided to search, an idea struck him. Marcus ran to his main control panel and began rapidly adjusting the workshop's systems. He redirected power from non-essential equipment and activated the emergency shields, force barriers designed to protect the building during industrial accidents. What are you doing? Kirillith asked. Making this look like a routine maintenance shutdown, Marcus replied, his fingers flying over the controls. The shields will hide your heat signatures, and the power fluctuations will look normal for a repair facility. He quickly moved some large equipment to create visual barriers around the workbench, then dimmed the lights to emergency levels. To an outside observer, the workshop would appear to be closed for storm repairs. The first hunter ship passed overhead, its sensors sweeping the area. Marcus held his breath as the scanner beam played across his building. The shields held, no alerts from the hunters, but then Zephyr made a small, distressed sound. The little dragon was reacting to the stress in the room. Its breathing became more rapid, and the scanner showed spikes in its bio readings. The mineral treatment was still working, but Zephyr's condition was becoming unstable. Shh, little one, Kirillith whispered, gently nuzzling her child. Be still. Marcus watched helplessly as Zephyr's vital signs fluctuated. The stress was undoing some of the progress they had made. Worse, if the little dragon became more agitated, it might cry out loudly enough for the hunters to hear. The second ship made another pass, this time flying lower. Its pilot was clearly suspicious about something. Marcus made a quick decision. He activated his workshop's acoustic dampening system, a feature designed to muffle noise from heavy machinery, and increase the aerosol generator's output. If Zephyr was going to be stressed anyway, at least they could maximize the treatment efficiency. But the increased mineral concentration had an unexpected effect. Instead of calming down, Zephyr began to shiver violently. The scanner alarms chimed softly as the little dragon's body temperature spiked. What's happening? Kirillith demanded, her voice tight with panic. Marcus frantically checked the readings. The mineral mixture was causing some kind of metabolic reaction he hadn't anticipated. Zephyr's system was processing the treatment too quickly, creating a biochemical imbalance. The treatment is working too fast, Marcus explained, his hands steady despite the crisis. Zephyr's body can't handle this much change at once. He needed to adjust the mineral concentration immediately, but the third hunter ship was now directly overhead, hovering just above the workshop. Any sudden changes to the building's energy signature might trigger their sensors. Marcus faced an impossible choice: save Zephyr with adjustments that might expose them all, or maintain their cover while the little dragon's condition deteriorated. He looked at Kirillith, saw the desperate love in her eyes, and made his decision. Hold on, he whispered, and began making careful adjustments to the aerosol system. If the hunters detected them now, at least he would go down fighting for something that mattered. The scanner readings showed Zephyr's condition stabilizing as Marcus fine-tuned the treatment. But overhead, the hunter ship's sensors were beginning to pick up the energy fluctuations from his adjustments. Time was running out in more ways than one. The hunter ship's scanners locked onto the workshop. Marcus could hear the low whine of charging weapons as the vessel descended toward his building. Through his security monitors, he saw armed figures preparing to deploy from the other 2 ships. They know we're here, Kirillith whispered, her massive form tensing for battle despite her exhaustion. Marcus continued adjusting the aerosol generator, his hands steady even as sweat beaded on his forehead. Zephyr's vital signs were stabilizing, but the little dragon was still critical. He needed more time they didn't have. A harsh voice crackled through the workshop's communication system. Human in the repair facility. This is Captain Voss of the Hunter's Moon. Open your doors and surrender the dragon specimens immediately. Marcus looked at his weapons cabinet. A few plasma tools and an old security pistol. Nothing that could stop military-grade combat armor. But sometimes the best weapon was information. He activated his external communications. This is Marcus Chen, licensed repair technician. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm alone here conducting storm repairs. Our sensors detect large life forms in your facility. Don't make this difficult. Marcus glanced at his scanners. The emergency shields were still hiding most of Kirilleth's signature, but the hunter's equipment was more sophisticated than he had hoped. They couldn't see details, but they knew something big was inside. Large life forms? Captain, you're scanning my industrial fabricators. They run hot enough to look like living tissue on low-resolution sensors. There was a pause in the transmission. Marcus held his breath, hoping his bluff would work. Stand by for inspection, Voss finally replied. Marcus knew he had bought them minutes at most. He turned back to Zephyr, who was breathing more steadily now but still unconsciously. The mineral treatment had stabilized the cobalt poisoning, but the little dragon remained critically weak. Kirilleth, Marcus whispered urgently. You said young dragons need their mother's milk. Is there anything else that could substitute? In emergencies, other mothers of the clan sometimes help, but we are alone. Marcus studied the bioscanner readings, his engineer's mind working furiously. Dragon milk contained minerals and nutrients specifically designed for Zephyrian physiology. But what if he could reverse engineer the basic components? He pulled up Zephyr's cellular analysis and began comparing it to the mineral profiles in his database. Young dragons needed calcium for scale development, iron for their blood analog, and trace amounts of rare earth elements for their crystalline organs. I have an idea, Marcus said, but it's risky. Heavy footsteps echoed outside the workshop. The hunters were approaching on foot. Marcus quickly loaded several specific compounds into his matter compiler: calcium carbonate, iron supplements, and trace minerals he used for specialized electronics. The device could combine them at the molecular level, but creating something nutritious enough to help Zephyr required precise calculations. What are you doing? Kirilleth asked. Making synthetic dragon milk, Marcus replied, his fingers flying over the compiler's controls. It won't be perfect, but it might give Zephyr enough energy to heal. The workshop door rattled as someone tried to force it open. Marcus had reinforced the entrance when he installed the emergency shields, but it wouldn't hold for long. His matter compiler chimed, producing a small vial of milky white fluid. According to his calculations, it should provide the basic nutrients a young dragon needed, but he had no way to test it properly. Open up in there, Captain Voss shouted. We're coming in. Marcus grabbed a medical injector from his first aid kit and filled it with the synthetic nutrients. Kirilleth, I need to inject this directly into Zephyr's system. It's the only way to get nutrition into him while he's unconscious. Kirilleth's eyes widened with fear. If you are wrong, if I'm wrong, we try something else. But if we do nothing, those hunters will take Zephyr anyway. The workshop door exploded inward with a shower of sparks and metal debris. 3 figures in combat armor stomped through the smoke, weapons raised. Behind them came Captain Voss, a scarred man with cold eyes and a reputation for ruthlessness. Well, well, Voss said, looking around the dimly lit workshop. Quite the setup you have here, Chen. Marcus stepped protectively in front of the workbench, keeping the injector hidden behind his back. Just a repair shop. Nothing here that would interest you. Voss gestured to his men, who began scanning the room with handheld detectors. Our sensors say otherwise. Large heat signatures, unusual atmospheric readings. You wouldn't be hiding anything from us, would you? Check for yourself, Marcus replied calmly. Those fabricators run hot, and I'm processing some exotic materials for a client. One of the hunters moved toward the shielded area where Kirilleth was hiding. Marcus's heart pounded, but he forced himself to remain still. Any sudden movement would give them away. The hunter's scanner beeped as it detected the massive dragon. Captain, I'm getting something big behind these equipment banks. Show me. Marcus knew their time was up. In seconds, the hunters would discover Kirilleth and Zephyr. He had one chance to save them. Actually, Captain, Marcus said loudly, there is something you should know. Voss turned toward him, eyebrow raised. Those aren't just any dragons you're hunting, Marcus continued. That's Kirilleth of the northern clans. Her mate is Thalon the Iron Wing. You might have heard of him. He destroyed 3 hunter ships last year when they attacked his territory. The hunters exchanged nervous glances. Thalen's reputation was legendary among both dragons and humans. "You're bluffing," Voss said, but Marcus could hear uncertainty in his voice. "Am I? How do you think a mother dragon found this exact location? She didn't choose my workshop at random. Thalon knows where she is, and he knows you're here too." Marcus activated his long-range scanner and projected a false sensor, reading showing multiple large signatures approaching from the north, exactly the direction Thalen's territory lay. "Incoming contacts," he announced. 3. No, 4 large flying objects. Closing fast. The fake signatures looked convincing on the scanner display. Voss stared at the screen, calculating odds he clearly didn't like. "Could be atmospheric disturbances," one of his men suggested nervously. "Could be an angry dragon lord with a grudge," Marcus countered. "Your choice, Captain." Behind his back, Marcus carefully positioned the injector against Zephyr's side. Whatever happened next, he was going to give the little dragon every chance to survive. Marcus pressed the injector against Zephyr's side, feeling the tiny dragon's ribs through the dull scales. The synthetic nutrients flowed into the little creature's bloodstream, just as Captain Voss made his decision. "Pack it up," Voss ordered his men. "We're not tangling with iron-winged dragons today." But one of the hunters, younger and more eager than the others, stepped closer to the workbench. "Captain, what if he's lying? We came all this way. Torres, I said, pack it up." The young hunter ignored his captain and reached for the equipment screening Kirillith. Just a quick look. Marcus couldn't stop him without revealing the injector. He watched helplessly as Torres pulled aside a metal panel, exposing Kirillith's massive shoulder. "Dragon!" Torres shouted, raising his weapon. Kirillith's response was immediate and terrifying. She reared up with a roar that shattered several pieces of equipment, her massive wings spreading to their full span. The workshop suddenly seemed impossibly small, but instead of attacking, she positioned herself protectively over Zephyr, shielding her child with her body. Even faced with armed enemies, her first instinct was to protect rather than fight. "Nobody move," Voss shouted, his weapon trained on the dragon. "Chen, step away from the specimen." Marcus remained where he was, the empty injector now hidden in his palm. "Her name is Kirillith, and she came here for help." "That's not a specimen, it's a sick child." "I don't care what sob story you've cooked up," Voss snarled. "That dragon is worth more credits than this entire colony." Kirillith's amber eyes blazed with fury, but she stayed still, protecting Zephyr. "We'll not let you take my child," she rumbled. Torres kept his weapon aimed at the dragon's head. "Captain, look at the size of those scales. And a baby too, we hit the jackpot." Marcus felt a surge of disgust at their callousness. These men saw only profit where he saw a family in crisis. But then something incredible happened. Behind Kirillith, Zephyr stirred. The little dragon's breathing had changed. Instead of the shallow, labored gasps that had characterized its condition for hours, Zephyr was taking deeper, more regular breaths. The synthetic nutrients were working. Marcus checked his scanner discreetly. Zephyr's energy levels were rising steadily. The combination of the mineral therapy and artificial nutrition had given the little dragon's body what it needed to begin healing itself. "Look," Marcus said softly to Kirillith. "Zephyr is getting better." Kirillith's massive head turned slightly and her eyes widened with wonder. Her child's scales were beginning to show hints of their natural blue-green color, and Zephyr's tiny claws flexed with returning strength. "Touching reunion," Voss said coldly. "Torres, prepare the stasis nets. We'll take them both." But Torres was staring at his scanner with confusion. "Captain, I'm getting multiple contacts approaching. Big ones." Marcus's fake sensor readings were still active, showing the imaginary dragon reinforcements closing in on their position. But now something else appeared on the screen. Something real. "Contact bearing 270, altitude 500 meters, Torres reported. Massive heat signature flying fast. This time the reading wasn't fake. Through the workshop skylight, a shadow passed overhead. Then another. The storm was clearing, and genuine dragons were arriving. Drawn by Kirillith's earlier roars or perhaps by some other means of communication Marcus didn't understand. "It's Thalon," Kirillith whispered, her voice filled with relief. "My mate comes." The first dragon landed outside the workshop with a ground-shaking impact. Marcus caught a glimpse of silver-blue scales and wings that seemed to catch and reflect the stormlight. 2 more dragons descended, forming a protective circle around the building. "Multiple hostiles," Torres shouted into his communicator. "We need immediate backup." But Voss was already backing toward the entrance. "Negative. We're pulling out. All units return to ships immediately." The hunter captain had survived this long by knowing when to cut his losses. Facing one sick dragon and her child was profitable. Facing a clan of healthy adult dragons was suicide. As the hunters retreated, the largest dragon outside let out a call that vibrated through the workshop walls. Kirillith answered with a complex series of tones that sounded like wind chimes in a hurricane. "What are they saying?" Marcus asked. "Thailand asks if we are safe," Kirillith translated. "I tell him about the human who saves our child." Marcus felt a chill as he realized what that meant. He had just been identified to a group of dragons as someone who had helped their kind. Given the usual relationship between humans and dragons, he wasn't sure if that was good or bad news. The hunter ships lifted off rapidly, their engines screaming as they fled the scene. Marcus watched them disappear into the distance, then turned back to check on Zephyr. The little dragon was sitting up. It was still weak, but its eyes were open and alert. The dull gray color was fading from its scales, replaced by vibrant patterns of blue and green. Most importantly, Zephyr was breathing normally. "The treatment worked," Marcus said in amazement. The synthetic nutrients gave him enough energy to process the mineral therapy properly. Kirillith lowered her great head to nuzzle her child gently. Zephyr made a soft chirping sound and nuzzled back. It was a moment of pure maternal love that transcended species boundaries. "You saved him," Kirillith said to Marcus, her voice thick with emotion. "When all hope was lost, you found a way." Marcus felt tears in his own eyes as he watched the reunion. "I just did what needed to be done." Outside, Thalen called again. Kirillith responded, then looked at Marcus with an expression he couldn't quite read. "My mate wishes to meet the human who helped us," she said carefully. "Will you come outside?" Marcus swallowed hard. Meeting one dragon had been terrifying enough. Meeting an entire clan was either going to be the greatest honor of his life or the last thing he ever did. But looking at Zephyr, now playfully trying to catch its own tail despite its recent brush with death, Marcus knew he had made the right choice. "Lead the way," he said. Marcus stepped outside his workshop for the first time in hours, and his breath caught in his throat. 3 enormous dragons had arranged themselves around the building, their scales gleaming in the post-storm sunlight. Each was magnificent and terrifying in its own way. Thalen was the largest, his silver-blue scales seeming to shift and flow like liquid metal. His eyes were the deep purple of twilight storms, and when he moved, Marcus could see the powerful muscles beneath those incredible scales. The second dragon was emerald green with gold markings, while the third displayed patterns of deep red and bronze. All 3 were watching Marcus intently. Kirillith emerged from the workshop behind him, carefully carrying Zephyr in her forearms. The little dragon was alert now, looking around with bright, curious eyes. When Zephyr saw Thalen, he chirped excitedly and reached toward his father. Thalen's fierce expression softened immediately. He lowered his massive head to gently nuzzle his child, making soft rumbling sounds that were clearly the dragon equivalent of happy purring. Marcus stood frozen, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. These creatures could reduce him to atoms with a single breath, yet they were having a family moment that was unmistakably loving and gentle. Thalen finished greeting his son and turned his attention to Marcus. The Dragon Lord studied the human for a long moment, his purple eyes seeming to look right through him. "You are the one called Marcus Chen," Thalen said. His voice was deeper than Kirillith's, like distant thunder. "My mate tells me you saved our child when all seemed lost. I just did what I could," Marcus replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "Zephyr needed help. Many humans would have turned us away, or worse, called the hunters themselves." Marcus felt a flash of anger. "I'm not that kind of human." Thalen tilted his massive head, studying Marcus with new interest. "No, you are not," he paused, then continued. "Kirillith says you used knowledge of stones and metals to cure the crystal poisoning. How does a human know such things? I fix broken machines for a living. I've learned about materials and chemistry from working with them every day." Marcus gestured toward his workshop. "When I saw that Zephyr had been poisoned by cobalt crystals, I just treated him like a very complex biological machine that needed repair." The green dragon spoke for the first time, her voice melodious like wind through chimes. "I am Viridian, clan healer. What this human accomplished should not have been possible. Zephyrian physiology is unlike any other species. But that's exactly why it worked, Marcus realized, the solution becoming clear in his mind. I didn't try to treat Zephyr like a human or any other species I knew about. I studied how his body actually functioned and worked with that. Viridian moved closer, her golden eyes bright with curiosity. Show me what you did. Marcus led the group back into his workshop, where the aerosol generator was still running and his scanners continued monitoring Zephyr's recovery. He explained his diagnostic process, the mineral therapy, and finally the synthetic nutrients. Remarkable, Viridian murmured, studying the scanner displays. You identified the breathing stone's function within hours. It took our healers generations to fully understand them. Sometimes an outside perspective helps, Marcus said. I didn't have preconceptions about how dragon healing should work, so I just focused on what I could observe. The red and bronze dragon, who had introduced himself as Pyrax, examined the matter compiler with obvious fascination. This device can create any mineral compound you desire? Within reason, yes. It breaks down materials into their component atoms and reassembles them according to programmed patterns. Incredible. With such tools, many injuries and illnesses could be treated more effectively. Marcus began to see where the conversation was heading. You're thinking about medical applications for your people? Thalon nodded slowly. For too long, our peoples have existed separately. Humans in their colonies, dragons in the deep forests. But perhaps there are benefits to cooperation we have not considered. Kirillith settled Zephyr on a soft blanket Marcus had provided, then joined the discussion. The hunters grow bolder each year. They have better weapons, better ships. Soon hiding will not be enough. But if humans and dragons work together, Viridian added, the hunters would face united opposition, and both our peoples could benefit from shared knowledge. Marcus felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. These dragons were talking about fundamental changes to human-dragon relations, and somehow his small act of kindness had become the catalyst. I'm just one person, Marcus said. I can't speak for all humans. No, Thalon agreed. But you can speak to them about what you have learned today. You can tell them that dragons are not monsters to be feared or resources to be harvested. We are people like humans with families and hopes and the capacity for gratitude. Zephyr chose that moment to let out a happy chirp and attempt to climb onto Marcus's workbench. The little dragon was clearly feeling much better, his scales now showing their full brilliant coloration. Marcus couldn't help smiling as he gently helped Zephyr up to the bench surface. The little dragon immediately began investigating the various tools and devices, his curiosity boundless. He likes you, Kirillith observed with amusement. I like him too, Marcus replied honestly. He's got an engineer's curiosity. Pyrax laughed, a sound like crackling flames. Perhaps he inherited that from his mother. Kirillith has always been fascinated by how things work. As if to prove his point, Kirillith had begun examining the matter compiler with intense interest. This could revolutionize mineral therapy for our people, she said. Instead of searching for specific stones across multiple worlds, we could create exactly what we need. I could teach you how to use it, Marcus offered. The principles aren't that complicated once you understand them. The dragons exchanged meaningful looks. Marcus realized he had just offered to share advanced human technology with an alien species, something that was probably against several regulations. That is a generous offer, Thalon said carefully, but such sharing would need to be official, approved by both our peoples. Then let's make it official, Marcus said, surprising himself with his boldness. Let's contact the colonial government and the dragon clans. Set up a proper meeting. You would risk your reputation, your standing with your own kind to advocate for us? Marcus looked at Zephyr, who was now trying to figure out how his scanner worked, then at Kirillith, whose eyes still held the gratitude of a mother whose child had been saved. Some things are more important than reputation, he said simply. Thalon studied Marcus for another long moment, then slowly lowered his great head in a gesture that Marcus instinctively recognized as a bow of respect. Then let us begin, the Dragon Lord said. Let us build something new together. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the gleaming new facility that had once been just his small repair shop. The building had been expanded into something much more ambitious, the first officially recognized human-dragon cooperative medical center. Through the large windows, he could see dragons and humans working side by side in the research laboratories and treatment wings. "The mineral synthesizer is ready for testing," announced Dr. Sarah Kim, the human physician who had volunteered to help establish the center. She gestured toward a sophisticated device that was an evolution of Marcus's original matter compiler. "Viridian says it should be able to produce therapeutic compounds we've never even imagined." Marcus nodded, but his attention was drawn to a commotion in the main treatment area. Zephyr, now grown to the size of a large dog and gleaming with health, was enthusiastically helping a team of technicians calibrate a new scanner. The young dragon had appointed himself as the center's unofficial quality control inspector. "Zephyr, let them work," Kirillith called with amusement. She had become the center's chief liaison, helping translate between human and dragon medical practices. Her natural curiosity and growing friendship with Marcus had made her perfect for the role. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. After that first meeting with Thalon's clan, Marcus had spent weeks in tense negotiations with colonial authorities. Many humans remained suspicious of dragons, just as many dragons remained wary of human intentions. But the medical benefits of cooperation had proven impossible to ignore. When a plague had struck the mining colony on Kepler 442b, affecting both human and dragon populations, the new partnership had provided a solution that neither species could have achieved alone. Dragon knowledge of biological minerals combined with human technology had created treatments that saved thousands of lives. "Marcus," Dr. Kim's voice brought him back to the present. "We have another emergency incoming. A human child this time, industrial chemical exposure." Marcus immediately shifted into his familiar problem-solving mode. "What kind of chemicals? Do we have sample analysis?" "Synthetic coolants from a failed life support system. The child's respiratory system is severely damaged." As they rushed toward the emergency treatment bay, Marcus reflected on how much had changed. The same analytical skills he had used to save Zephyr now helped human patients every day. The center had developed revolutionary treatments by combining the best of both species' medical knowledge. In the treatment bay, they found Viridian already examining a young girl who couldn't have been more than 8 years old. The dragon healer's massive form was bent over the small patient with incredible gentleness, her golden eyes focused with professional concern. "The damage is extensive," Viridian reported. "Human lungs are more delicate than our breathing stones, but the injury pattern is similar to crystal poisoning cases we've treated." Marcus studied the diagnostic readouts. The synthetic coolants had crystallized in the child's lungs, creating blockages similar to what had nearly killed Zephyr. But human physiology required different treatment approaches. "What if we modified the mineral therapy protocol?" Marcus suggested. "Use the aerosol delivery system but with compounds designed for human biochemistry." Dr. Kim frowned at the readouts. "That's never been tested on humans. The liability alone?" "The child is dying," Viridian interrupted gently. "Sometimes untested methods are the only hope." Marcus was already working at the modified matter compiler, calculating the precise mineral combinations needed. Human lungs required different therapeutic approaches than dragon breathing stones, but the basic principle remained the same: neutralize the foreign crystals and provide materials for natural healing. As he worked, Marcus noticed Zephyr watching from the corner of the room. The young dragon's bright eyes followed every movement, absorbing the knowledge that might one day help others. "Ready," Marcus announced, loading the treatment into the aerosol generator. This should work like it did for Zephyr, but tailored for human biology. The treatment began, and within hours the child's condition started improving. The crystallized coolants were dissolving and her natural healing processes were taking over. It was the first successful use of dragon-inspired mineral therapy on a human patient. As they monitored the child's recovery, Thalon arrived for his weekly visit to the center. The Dragon Lord had become an unexpected advocate for human-dragon cooperation, speaking to dragon clans across the galaxy about the benefits of partnership. "Another success," he observed, watching the healing process. "How many lives has this center saved now?" 237, Dr. Kim replied promptly. "Humans and dragons both. And the hunters?" Marcus smiled grimly. "Captain Voss and his crew were arrested last month trying to raid a dragon nesting ground. Turns out when humans and dragons cooperate on law enforcement, poachers don't stand much chance." Thalon's purple eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Justice served. As evening approached, the center began to quiet down. The human medical staff headed home, while the dragon healers settled into their preferred resting areas. Marcus remained, checking on their young patient one final time. The little girl was sleeping peacefully, her breathing strong and regular. Her parents sat nearby, holding hands and whispering their gratitude to anyone who would listen. Zephyr approached Marcus, now large enough that his head reached the human's shoulder. "Marcus," the young dragon said in carefully pronounced standard. "Thank you for saving her too." Marcus smiled, remembering the terrified, sick little creature that Kirillith had carried into his shop 6 months ago. Zephyr had grown into a bright, curious young dragon who seemed determined to help others the way he had been helped. "That's what we do here," Marcus replied. "We fix broken things." Through the center's main window, Marcus could see the lights of New Geneva colony spreading across the valley. Human settlements and dragon territories no longer existed in isolation. Trade routes now connected the species, and joint research stations studied everything from mineral therapy to sustainable technology. It had all started with one desperate mother seeking help for her sick child, and one human willing to see past his own fear to provide that help. Now it was becoming something that would benefit both species for generations to come. Kirillith joined them at the window, her amber eyes reflecting the colony lights. "I never imagined when I brought Zephyr here that it would lead to all this." "The best solutions often come from unexpected places," Marcus replied. "Sometimes you just have to be willing to try something that's never been done before." Outside, the first transport of the evening lifted off, carrying dragon ambassadors to a trade meeting with human merchants. It was a sight that had been unimaginable just months ago, but was now becoming routine. Marcus Chen, former repair shop owner, current director of the most successful interspecies medical facility in the galaxy, smiled as he watched the ship disappear into the stars. Sometimes the most important repairs weren't to machines at all. They were to the spaces between hearts, minds, and species. Spaces that had seemed broken beyond repair until someone with the right tools and enough compassion decided to try. In the end, that was all it had taken, a willingness to help, regardless of the differences that might have stood in the way. The universe, Marcus had learned, was full of broken things waiting for someone who cared enough to fix them, and he wouldn't have it any other way.